In this section, we will be discussing signed numbers. Now, in any discussion about signed numbers, we have to refer to the number line. The number line in which 0 separates the positive numbers. I'll just list a few here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, all the way approaching positive infinity, from the negative numbers. Now from 0, the negative numbers start at -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, and so on, all the way out approaching negative infinity. Now, in these examples, we will be performing several different operations on signed numbers, the first of which is what we call the absolute value. Now, the absolute value of a number is its distance from 0. Whether in the positive direction or the negative direction, we are simply measuring the distance of that number from 0. So here we have the absolute value of -3. All right, -3 on the number line. Remember, we're just looking at the distance from 0. -3 is 3 units from 0. So the absolute value of -3 is 3. Using the same logic, the absolute value of +3 is also 3. Now, this next example, we have the opposite of the absolute value of -3, which would be the opposite of 3, or -3. And last of all, the absolute value of 0 is simply defined as 0. Now, when performing operations on signed numbers, there are a few things that you just need to keep in mind. First of all, whenever you see a negative number written, it's common to have parentheses around it simply to separate it from everything else in the problem. Also, just something to keep in mind, whenever you see two signs together, the rules are as shown in the middle of this page. If you ever see two negative signs together, the result is positive. If you see two plus signs together, the result is positive. If the signs match, the result is going to be positive. If they do not match, if, for example, you have a negative and then a positive, the result is going to be negative, or the other way around, a positive and a negative. The result is going to be negative. This is something that you want to keep in mind because it will help to simplify a lot of the problems that we are going to see. So in example 2, we are adding and subtracting signed numbers. Starting with 3 plus a -2. Now, one way to go about this is first to resolve the signs separating these two numbers. Here we have plus a -2. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 3 plus a negative. That would be minus. So 3 minus 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. All right, whenever you are working with positive and negative numbers, whenever you're dealing with signed numbers, try to resolve the signs first. It will simplify the problem, and then once it's done, you can refer to the number line. Think about the number line to decide what to do next. So this next one, we have -3 plus 2. If you imagine on our number line, starting with -3, then we're adding 2. You wind up with -1. All right, this next example, we have -3 minus a -2. Resolving the signs, negative and a negative together, give you a plus sign. So I'm just going to rewrite this as -3 plus 2, which is the same thing we just saw. -3 plus 2 is -1. All right, this last example here, -3 plus a -2, again resolving the signs. This is the same as -3 minus 2. Back to the number line, if you imagine starting at -3, now we're subtracting 2, so we're going this way, 2 units. And we wind up at -5. Now example 3, we are multiplying and dividing signed numbers. And in this example, you want to pay particular attention to this rule. If you see a negative times a negative, the result is going to be positive. A positive times a positive, the result is going to be positive. Negative times a positive times a negative will both give you negative results. And the same is true with division. If you have a negative number divided by a negative number, the result is going to be positive. If you have a positive number divided by a positive number, it's going to be positive. If the signs are different, if you have a positive number divided by a negative number or a negative number divided by a positive number, the result is going to be negative. This is a rule that you really do want to keep in mind, especially when multiplying or dividing. So for this first example, part A, we have negative 5 times negative 6. A negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 6 is 30. All right, now we don't usually write the positive sign, so I'm just going to rewrite this as just 30. This next example, we have 3 times a negative 4. A positive 3 times a negative 4 will give you negative 12. Here we have negative 24 divided by 8. A negative divided by a positive gives you a negative. 24 divided by 8 is 3. And this last one, we're bringing fractions back here. Here we have positive 2/3 times a negative 1/5. A positive times a negative, our answer is going to be negative. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. So our answer is negative 2/15. Now in example 4, we are raising negative numbers to different powers. Here we have negative 5 in parentheses raised to the second power and negative 5 without the parentheses raised to the power. Now this is something that you may want to check and verify on your graphing calculator because it is true. When you have negative 5 squared with the negative 5 in parentheses, it does, as expected, negative 5 times negative 5, which gives you a negative times a negative is a positive 25. Without the parentheses, however, expanding this, negative 5 squared is going to be negative 5 times 5, giving us a result of negative 25. All right, verify this on your graphing calculator. This is true. Moving down to negative 5 cubed, if the parentheses are there, we have negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5. A negative times a negative is a positive times a negative is a negative 125. Negative 5 cubed without the parentheses does the same thing as before. Negative 5 times 5 times 5, which gives us negative 125. Example 5, putting everything together, now we have an order of operations problem. A whole bunch of operations going on with positive and negative numbers. So looking at this, we have negative 8 divided by negative 2 cubed minus a negative 3 minus 5 squared. So order of operations say to deal with parentheses first. So looking at this, there are parentheses in the problem, but there are no operations within the parentheses. The parentheses are simply there to separate the signed numbers from the rest of the problem. So moving on to the exponents, we have negative 2 cubed and 5 squared. So rewriting most of the problem, negative 8 divided by negative 2 cubed gives negative 8. I'm going to go ahead and put that in parentheses. Minus negative 3, copying that down, minus 5 squared. Now the square is only applied to the 5, so the minus sign stays there, minus 25. Now moving on to the next operation. Here we have division. Negative 8 divided by negative 8. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. 8 divided by 8 is 1. Copying down the rest of the problem, minus a negative 3 minus 25. Now we have subtraction, left to right. 1 minus a negative 3, resolving the signs, this is 1 plus 3 minus 25. 1 plus 3 is 4 minus 25. 4 minus 25 is negative 21.